everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Jeff Erickson here with Chris Liss. Our new musical intro, Chris, sounds a little bit like yours. How you have that random musical. I think you recorded it yourself, musical intro to your podcast and all that. So, kind of trying to make you feel at home for doing this here.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Yeah, I had my guitar riff, but I haven't been doing it since I've been doing video casts, and I just been too lazy to get the audio file in a video cast. But eventually,
just pull out the guitar and do it yourself.
I should do another one. No, I have the file, the MP3,
live riffs every time.
I should do it live.
Yes,
I should do it live.
Come on.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by the good folks over at Circa, at Renegade, and at Fantasy Sports Knockout. Got a lot to talk about here, but we just finished the RotoWire Steak League Auction. One of the players that Chris got was Rashee Rice. We got news on Rashee Rice today, and it was great because it started breaking right before the start of our show, and then got clarified like 10 minutes into the segment. So we're like, oh, yeah, he accepted the suspension. It's 6 games. It's at the start of the season.
Yeah, so that's good and bad, right? It was sort of better for me when he was playing 4 and then everything else was up in the air, because that particular format, we only have 6 bench spots. And so that 6 weeks is going to be expensive to hold them on that slot, because we don't have any sort of IR. If you get injured players, they start to add up and you need to fill starting lineups. Now, the good news about the suspension is that I think the first 3 weeks, there's no buys. So for the first 3 weeks, you should have more options. When you start running into buys and injuries, that weeks 4 through 6, that's where it gets expensive to hold him. In an NFFC, it's no problem. You have 10 slots.
Right.
Fine. In this league, it's more expensive, but I got him for $13. And this is honestly, and I was bragging about my last one, so people think I'm an asshole, but maybe I just am. But this was the best auction I've done in the last 10 years, because it was I got all the high price players I like to get, and then I waited, and then I got 2 receivers I just didn't even think were possible for me. Usually when you've kind of gotten the Bijan Robinsons and Lamar Jackson and Brock Bowers and Brian Thomas, you're like, okay, I just got to take what this gives me. I can't be picky here. I've got to just fill the rest. I've got the studs that I like, and I got to fill the rest. And so you usually settle for some very substandard players, but I just didn't. They just came to me, and I couldn't believe it, actually. You can see my team in the middle. I accidentally bought Lamar Jackson, and then but Bowers,
first player out of the shoot, right?
Yeah, I was just price enforcing. I wasn't even serious. My plan was to get a $2 quarterback. And this is by the way, this is a point every 25 yards passing. So rushing yards are rushing quarterbacks are more valuable. It's only 4 points per passing touchdown. So the traditional drop back guys, the Jared Goffs, are worth less relative to, the NFFC. So I'm like, oh, he's going in the early to mid third in the NFFC. And the players at that range were going for $35-$40. Okay. And I go 22 just to push the bids along. So I'm not up all night, since I'm 5 hours behind you. I'm 8 hours behind you, Jeff. And it just sticks. And I'm like, okay, I guess I got Lamar Jackson as my quarterback. I didn't mean to. And then I got Bowers at 28, and he went at picked 2-5 in my draft just now. So those guys are going for $40. The 2-5, the AJ Browns and those guys that are going right next to him, Chase Brown, and he goes for 28. So at least if you like the NFC, now that's full PPR, so it's a little different. This is half, but I'm like, I got $12 off of this. And then I was like, oh, wow. And then I had a little bit of money, and then Tet McMillan comes up, and he stops at 19, and he's going to the 3-4 turn. And that is a $30 player. If you look at the other players, he's 19. And then Rashee Rice is going in, the 5th now, 4th, 5th, and he's 13. So I don't know how I got those last 2. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, so this is what I thought prices were down for the elite players all draft, all auction long. We used to get guys that would go $60. We didn't have anybody do that this draft. We were getting in the 50s instead, in high 40s in some cases, and yet and it was weird because I saw that going on, but yet I kind of had a certain way I wanted to budget. And I usually get stuck price enforcing these fools, and I didn't this year. I decided, you know what? If Chris is going to get his guy, so be it. I'm just going to, I'll be in on it. I'll make sure he doesn't get an outrageous bargain, but I'm not going to break my plan to do this here. Cause I think so many times I take it upon myself to take these bargains or this price enforcing thing, and then it stops. Then I'm like, okay, now I got to scratch this out, change everything. Oh God, now I can't even afford an active lineup. So I
and then now, oh God, now I'm buying steaks. Now Chris is ordering lobster. This is not ending well.
Except that's not the case that what happened last year, but that's beside the point there. And here, for the people that are uninitiated with the RotoWire Steak League, let people know what it is, first of all. So this is this is a league we've had for almost, I think, 20 years now, right?
More than 20.
More
like
than
22.
20.
I mean, a lot. 24, maybe even 25.
Yeah, and we always have a steak dinner side bet. 8 of us in the LA version. There's more in the Madison version. We do a thing where it's awesome. It's a blast. We do a steak dinner every year in the off season at Taylor Steakhouse in LA for us. 8 of us are doing it's total points based. It's based on the whole season. And the 4 top teams in this 8-team side bet eat for free. The 5th place pays for himself. That was you last year. 6th and 7th paid for themselves and one other. And the dreaded double buyer 8th place pays for himself and 2 others. Includes drinks, hors d'oeuvres, appetizers, whatever, dessert,
multiple desserts if you can handle it.
No doggy bags allowed. None of this. I'll take it home for my pregnant wife at Liar. You're going to eat it in the car ride home, sort of thing there. That's a Jason Thornberry rule.
Right.
So we limit the gluttony to a certain extent. No one's going out and ordering $200 bottles of wine. We probably could, but we don't do that. But it's more important to win the side bet than it is to win the league itself.
Oh, way more important. The side bet can cost you $500 if it goes wrong, maybe more.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, if you're a nutless monkey, you kind of want to draft for avoid downside more than try to get upside, right? Just be like a low end eater who loses in the round 1 of the playoffs, but nobody's doing that. We're all trying to win the league because it's obviously more fun. I actually think I got some of these bargains. You just explained it to me, Jeff. I was like, how am I getting these bargains? I think you and I always bid on everybody. Like, so if they're like Saquon Barkley $1, I go Saquon for 35. I know I'm not going to get him for 35, but it's going to just move it along because 1, 2, 3, there's no point to count up to 35. We all know he's going in the 40s. So I'll just go 35 or 39, and let the bidding really start. And that's kind of what happened with Lamar with the first one. And I just got stuck, but because you also used to do that, you usually do that also with me. And you didn't do that. And other people probably just over the years relied on you.
I know, right?
Because if there's only one guy doing that.
Don't worry, Jeff's got it. Yeah.
Yeah. If there's 2 guys doing that, right? Then you and I kind of pay the penalty of getting stuck sometimes, right? Like where we don't want the guy, but we're just price enforcing. But if only one guy does it, then there's everyone's like, oh yeah, I don't want that guy. I don't want Ted McMillan right now. Okay. So I get him at 19. It just stops. I mean, look at where he goes in the NFFC.
Oh yeah.
And compare him, Cortland Sutton, I got him in the late 4th in this draft today. He went 22. Ted McMillan's 19. He goes sometimes in the 3rd. So that was just like a weird thing. And that doesn't usually happen in an auction. And I had some of the least amount of money left. It wasn't like I was sitting there with all the money and everybody could outbid me. They were all just kind of
108. I could not, by the way. I was the one guy that couldn't because I went through a spree in picks 50 through 90. I got 4 or 5 guys. I followed my plan. I'm happy with what I did. So, it's cool. I spent $8 on 2 quarterbacks. I finally didn't spend a ton on quarterbacks, Chris. Usually I'm the Caleb Williams for 15, the Justin Fields for 20 one year guy. Okay, I've cured myself a little bit of that. Now, Lamar is obviously a different guy, and I'm not criticizing you for that. First guy of the shoot, that was a fine price. You're getting an elite player. My belief on quarterbacks this year is you go either with the top 5 or you go pretty late. I went pretty late. I'm pretty happy with what I did there. But because of that, it's just okay, you got to do something a little bit different there. And you do what you do every year in the auction. It's just a little different variant. You buy a bunch of players relatively early, you get the stars, and then you stay out of the middle, the overpriced middle. And I think you did a good job on that. I think you did this. And to get Rice for 13 later as going back to that, I mean, I thought that was a little windfall in your lap. Again, I probably it was him or I got a Buka for 14, 1 player later, and I'm fine with that. So, or 8 players later, but $1 more, I was fine with that. It's about the same area where those guys go. But yeah, it's all about stepping in the timing later on, and then you still had money left for the end game, which was nice.
It was really weird, and normally if you start with Bijan, Bowers, and Jackson as your 3 big buys, you're going to have weak wide receivers. But I got Brian Thomas, McMillan, and Rashee Rice as my 3 receivers. Like, that's just weird. Like, that was able to happen. And I price enforced on Brian Robinson for God knows what reason. Someone brought him up. It's before the trade, by the way.
But it was after he didn't play the Monday night game against the Bengals. So he was clearly on the way out.
Right. We knew he was going to be traded. We didn't know where. He was likely to be traded. And I was like 3, and he came up so early, and he's not the kind of player that comes up early, and it stuck. And I was like, oh, that was kind of dumb. I don't want Brian Robinson. But now I'm like very happy in the situation he's in to have him for $3.
Yeah, he's the top backup on the Niners. He's going to be ahead of Garendo. So, yeah, I thought that was fine. I think he's kind of a boring player, but whatever. This is okay, if McCaffrey gets hurt, you've got the guy. That's all that is.
Yeah, I think he'll play a little bit. I don't think they're going to work McCaffrey into the ground. I think Robinson may get some goal line.
Sure, maybe.
Maybe. They do work McCaffrey into the ground, but they're going to need him as a receiver more, catch passes and not do the short yardage stuff.
We're going to talk nomination strategy, but first, quick note from our friends at Circa. Circa Million and Circa Survivor are back with a massive $21 million in guaranteed prizes. Nick Whalen and I were just there for Circa kickoff weekend. It's going bonkers on the signups, especially for Survivor. There's Circa Million, which you pick 5 games against the spread each week, 18 weeks of action with 126 ways to win, $1 million for the winner and $6 million guaranteed. Circa Survivor, which I jumped into, and I know Liss has done in the past, 1 pick a week, no point spread.
I'm in.
You're in. All right.
Yeah. I went to Vegas this summer.
Excellent.
I brought my whole family to Vegas. I told the proxy that I used to sign up because you need a proxy if you're not local. Yep. I was like, you guys should get paid. Like, we stayed 3 nights in an expensive hotel on the Strip and went out to dinners and went to the Sphere and did all the shit. Like, you guys are bringing in so much business, or Circa, or they should get like a cut of these hotels. Like, it should be like, if you have a Circa, if you prove that you're in one of these contests, they give you like $100 credit for breakfast or something. They it's like you're bringing people to Vegas.
Well, I use Football Contest Proxy. I tweeted them out when I signed up. Very excited about that.
Tony and Maddie, or is that the one?
Tony and Maddie.
That's what
I signed up on Friday last week, so there you have it. We're excited about doing that, but it should be a lot of fun. And I'm very excited about the contest again. Got to talk. Did a little video with Derek Stevens, talked about their ads for Circa and all that. So we love Circa. You can enter in Nevada, as we were talking about, play from anywhere, $21 million guaranteed. Visit circasports.com for details. Big thanks to Circa, as always. Great host, great time there. Okay, let's talk nominations, because after a while, especially, there's a lot of things you can different do. Like at the start of the draft or an auction, the world's your oyster. You can bring up, you want to fill in your $1 defensive player, your $1 kicker, go ahead and do that. If you want to try to bring some money off the table, you do that. Sometimes the best deals are the first couple of players, so maybe you bring them up early and just see if you can get them for a decent price.
Yeah, I think like you don't want to be, so it's weird, but like in an auction, you don't want to be too choosy, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter if I get Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson or Jamar Chase so much. It matters that I get them early, because 51 is too cheap for Bijan. And I think Chase went for the same amount. As you said, it used to be 60, 65 sometimes. That's what those guys are worth in a format like this. So because the world is everybody's oyster, they don't need to get Bijan, right? They can wait and get Genty. They could wait and get Derrick Henry. There's no urgency that, this is the last good running back. They're like, it's over 50. I don't need it. Mm-hmm. And so what you end up seeing is people chasing, people waiting and waiting and waiting, and then it gets a little tight. And then the other really important thing to understand in an auction is there's this like plateau level. So like it starts out like you think it's linear, like, okay, the top guy's 51, Chase and Robinson, Gibbs was 50. And then the other guys in the first round are like mid to high 40s, and it descends from there. And you get into like maybe the 3rd round or the 4th round type of guys. And all of a sudden people are still bidding 32, 33 for those guys. Right. And there's a point, and it could be the 4th, it could be the 5th, where it already drops down to like 16 because people have spent the money, and those guys are not really difference makers. Like if the replacement level guy is 10 points at wide receiver and this guy's 13 points, it's +3, right? If you're talking about first and second round players, it's +8, +9. So there's this huge windfall to get those guys. And now you're like just slightly lower, but you're only getting a +3. You're getting a third of the profit versus the replacement value. So you got to be very careful not to you got to fight for the top tier. And then you got to let go of those now it could be that the top tier goes in the 60s and then those mid-tier guys are going for, 15, 14, and they're great deals and you could fill up a team with them. But that in practice, in my experience, very rarely happens.
Especially in this league. I'm with you on that one there. As an example, 109th player brought up, DeAndre Swift. He's a round 6, round 7 player, RB 20 something. Went for $30 in this league.
Right? That's a plateau that has to drop off. Now, Swift has upside. I mean, I could see someone draft him in the 5th round. I could see, with the pass catch.
Half point PPR, though.
You're right.
My point is, though, it's like, but you're getting the same player drafted 2 rounds earlier for the same or even less price in some cases here. Why not just pay up? And I think you've noticed that before, and you've done well to profit off of that. That you can find some pretty decent deals on that there. I thought some of the receivers were a little pricey. That especially like AJ Brown went for 42. He's an end of the 2nd round guy. Ladd McConkey went for 31. That's actually a pretty decent deal. Actually,
that was a great deal because he goes ahead of Brown, or he goes about the same.
That was
spot. He got Ladd McConkey for 31. So he goes in the same spot as Brown. That's $11 difference for the same ADP. Now Brown actually has a little advantage in this half point format because he scores touchdowns. He makes big plays. And the Amon-Ra,
he might though.
He could. Yeah. He can. He's fast.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, if DeAndre Swift is going for the same price as Ladd McConkey, you've done well to get McConkey. You've done well to get the earlier guy there.
Yeah,
for sure. $1 difference in this case there. So I think sometimes nominating that star player early can be a smart play. I think I want another thing I like to do sometimes. Say I got a scarce position. I was the Kittle guy this year. My next 5 nominations were all tight ends. I wanted people to pay for those tight ends, not be able to wait till late in the auction and get them cheap when nobody had any money. I wanted people to actually go ahead and spend on those tight ends. And that kind of happened, actually. Yeah, I got Kittle for 18, and Hawkinson went for, Hawkinson went for 15. Laporta went right around that same price, 17, $1 less than Kittle. That's what I want. I don't want that player I don't want Laporta going for 11. I think the only tight end that was cheap was Evan Engram, but of that class.
Yeah, totally. I had Brock Bowers, so I was happy you were doing it. I mean, I do that at a certain point in the draft, especially later where I had $49 for a while. I had most of my key guys in, and I saw some of the bigger, stacks that were left. I just want to push out a guy that those guys have to be waiting on, right? When you have too much money left for the inventory that's there, you've got like 3 or 4 guys and you're like, I must get those guys. And you want them to pay up for them. And you want a bidding war between 2 or 3 of the guys with the big stacks to go fight each other. And they were doing that. There was that whole middle part of the draft where I was like, oh my God, like DeAndre Swift was one, but there were like 5 of those guys, maybe more, where I'm like, wow, they're really going toe to toe because these guys have too much money. And the other benefit of doing what I do, which is to just get rid of 2/3 of your money, 3/4 of it as soon as you can for like the premium guys, is you never really are in danger of leaving money on the table, which is the worst thing you can do. I'm always getting my money's worth. I'm always putting my money to work right away, making sure it's being put to work. And these guys who have too much money, that panic of like, the inventory's thinning and this other guy's got a lot of money too. And he's not just going to let me get this guy for 12. He's going to make me pay 22 for guys worth 17 and he's the top guy. And I just got to do it. And the thing is, if you don't get the top guys, and then you're going to have to get the middle guys. And when you're in that situation, which you want to avoid, it's still better to overpay for the middle guys than to just leave money on the table. So it's like you're forced into a bad decision, and that's still the best decision in the circumstances.
So you can get middle guys, just get them earlier.
Right.
That's what my solution there is, like, bring them up, get them earlier. They're like, I don't have the best running backs. I have Travion Henderson and Alvin Kamara, but I got them at prices cheaper. Like I got Kamara $6 cheaper than Swift. And, say what you will. I mean, I don't think Kamara is amazing, but I got $6 to apply to something else there, for the same
he
back.
Goes ahead of Swift in the drafts. And then, by the way, Travion Henderson went at 2-3 in my draft today.
I believe it. I got 2 of the Helium dudes, and I've kind of had a come to Jesus moment about Helium guys. I want to pay the Helium guy. I want to get the Helium guys because almost always those guys work. Those are the guys that everyone's big on for a reason, and they're still profitable. I found that instead of I saved money and I took the bargain on this guy that nobody wants. Well, no, I got the guy that everybody wants. I'd rather have that.
It's like buying a momentum stock. You're like, Tesla, it's already run up. Well, I'll just hold it because everyone's going to keep running it up rather than being
Bitcoin.
like, GM is cheap. I mean, Bitcoin is a no brainer, but GM is cheap. I'm going to buy some of that stock because it's at a discount. The value investing doesn't really work. Now it's a little different because obviously like people's opinions of stocks drive the price, whereas people's opinions of players drive the cost, but they don't drive the performance of the stock, right? The performance is driven by reality. And sometimes the people's opinions don't match reality. But I don't know about that. Have you done a study on that? Because that's interesting that you came to that conclusion that you're just going to like ride the hype guys because they're hyped for a reason.
I've read a few things. I haven't done my own study on this, but I saw some of the fact that, the get your guys are doing better than the take what the market gives you guys. Maybe this is the NFBC main event I'm thinking of more than anything else, but I think it's especially true in football. I mean, it's just, you want to get the difference makers there, and Henderson could be a difference maker. And instead of like, I'll take this guy that nobody wants here, but I'm certain guys I might be higher and I have a difference of opinion. That's different than just settling for a player that I don't like him, but he's a bargain. It's like, the food's awful, but it's all you can eat,
It's free. It's free. It's so funny that you say this because I had the opposite revelation that you had.
That's so funny.
Right. And I'm the other way normally, like just pay up.
Yes, you are. You're the genius drafter, not the agnostic.
I can outperform the market. I know. I started thinking that I'm too much attached to these are the guys I like and these are the guys I don't like, And so I started just researching some of the guys I don't like more, like, because you see all these cases for them. I don't want to take some because I heard it on a podcast, but I'll just like be like, okay, let's look into this guy just for my own purposes more. I wasn't going to draft Nico Collins. I still didn't because I just think like, why not just take Drake London who doesn't get hurt every year? I just think like it's the same guy, but one of them gets hurt and one of them doesn't, but so that's, so some of them I looked in and was like, no, I'm still off that guy. But a bunch of them I looked into and I was like, you know what? I can see what these guys are saying about this guy that I didn't formerly like. And I started to realize like you should stick with your guns and get your guys, but only in a few circumstances. This is just like betting, right? Like you may find a line that you're like, oh, that's messed up. That line's not right. I'm going to put a lot of money on it. Like that Seahawks Denver Super Bowl that we both made a lot of money on. Yeah. It was just like Seattle's going to beat them. I just feel strongly about it. And then like most of the time, like the line is pretty good, most games you're like, you don't have a strong lean on a particular line. And so it's like, let's not force it and put a lot of money on this stuff. So you start taking ADP bargains and letting ADP dictate. And then if there's a guy though, that you're like, I don't like Jameson Williams. I don't like Nico Collins just because the injuries, there's a few guys I don't like. I'll pass even though they're, falling 4 spots. If they fall 10 or 12 spots, maybe I'll be in. Right. There's also with the builds in the playoffs, like you get harder builds, you get unique builds if you get guys at the max pick, obviously. But just in general, like you should have like 5 or 6 guys you really like and 5 or 6 guys you don't like, but don't try to be so sure of who you like and don't like for the entire player pool.
Yeah, I agree. And I think sometimes I
lost you, Jeff. I lost your audio for some reason.
Okay, that's weird. Sometimes we draft on vibes. And that's wrong. The vibes are wrong. Sometimes I get attached to a player.
Me. I don't know what happened. Let me see. Okay, you should be back.
Okay, sometimes we get. Sometimes the vibes are
What's
wrong.
Going on with this? Sorry.
I'll keep talking while you figure this out a little bit here. But sometimes you get attached or detached from a player.
My sound. Keep talking.
And
I'll
it's
figure it
really
out. I hear you.
Not a good reason to do that. And I find that in baseball, that happens to me way too much. So. That's one thing I'd worry about there a little bit. But you never know. Sometimes that's the thing. Good time for me. While Chris is fixing his audio, good time to do a read. Our broadcast is brought to you by Renegade Fantasy. Fantasy football players, aren't you done watching your season crumble because of injuries or underperforming players? Join the RotoWire League today on Renegade Fantasy app, the only app that lets you substitute players in real time. Go to rotowire.com or go to rotowire.renegadefantasy.com and hit join today. Again, rotowire.renegadefantasy.com. Join today. With Renegade, you're not just a GM, you're the coach. No more losing on Sundays. No more lost points. You call the shots. You make the moves. You win the league.
Strange.
Step out of the luxury box and onto the field. This is fantasy football without limits. This is Renegade Fantasy. Join the RotoWire League today and win. Visit rotowire.renegadefantasy.com and join the league today. Here with Chris Liss, we're working through his audio issues, so hopefully we can get that fixed out there. Chris, can you hear me now?
It's very strange because I can.
Okay. We're going to
check if you're on mute, Jeff, in some way.
I am not here, but there it is. I'm not on mute. I'm going to tell Chris to log out. And we'll figure this out here. But anyways, we're talking a little bit about genius versus agnostic and how maybe, him doing the research there suggested that maybe.
Here, let me get out and get back in. It's probably better.
All right.
And
we'll figure out while Chris is doing that, we'll share our other note here from Fantasy Sports Knockout. Fantasy Sports Knockout is where a fantasy league meets a knockout pool, an innovative take on fantasy football. The concept is simple. Choose a new fantasy lineup each week and score points the same way you would in any fantasy league. But you must choose your players wisely. You can only use each player one time. The lowest weekly score or group of scores is eliminated from the contest every week. The concept may be simple, but survival is not. How will you play? Load up early or play the matchups and save the better players for later. Fantasy Sports Knockout. Can you survive their fantasy? Sign up at play.fantasysportsknockout.com today. Chris Liss is going to be joining us right now. I think we have Chris?
I'm back. I can hear you. Sorry.
All right.
For some reason I couldn't hear you. I had to get out and get
We're back. That's right. I took care of both reads. So we knocked that out there. So we use that wisely there while you're gone there. So that's good. Thanks to Renegade Fantasy and Fantasy Sports and Knockout. Chris, we were talking about the genius versus agnostic scale and how we've kind of gone we've gone full circle. I'm more genius, you're more agnostic now, which is kind of funny. I wouldn't say you're completely that way. You still have the same style where you get some elite players and wait and take some guys late. So you still have that as part of your auction strategy. Let me ask you this. Budgeting. Do you do like any sort of pre-budgeting work? Do you have designated slots? Do you say, okay, when I get to about $30 left, I want to hold out so I can just pick apart the end game? How do you think about budgeting?
So I wanted to do a couple bucks on the quarterback, and I ended up with Lamar Jackson for 22, the most expensive quarterback. Mm-hmm. So I don't budget that tightly. I do try to spend 3/4 of my money early, 2/3 to 3/4. Pick off something in the mid game if it emerges, but it usually doesn't. Wait till the end where I'm sort of even with everybody, and hopefully pick off several players. Like I almost was in it for Diggs. I was almost in for Jaden. Was it Jaden Reed or did I get Jaden Reed? I think I passed on him, but I got like 3 guys like Josh Downs, Jaden Higgins, and Luther Burden for like $3 each instead of getting one guy for $9. So I was actually like pleased with that because I had to make that choice of whether I go to dollar days and just go all in, or there's a few guys I liked almost as much as the guys I was going hard on. And I was like, okay, I'm going to let them go. I got outbid by $1, like 3 times in a row, and then got way more guys. And I think that is better. So I'd like to get $2 and $3 and $4 players at the end if possible. Now with my strategy, I often end up with $1 players. And the trick is you're at 6, you have your max bid is 8 or 9, and someone goes 7, and you're like, are all these guys going to go for 7 or 8 and I'm going to get none of them anyway? So I just get this one and go to dollar days? Or do I trust? Nope. I'm looking at the board. The money's going down. I'm still going to get a few $3 and $4 guys and split up my max bid among a few players. And you don't know in advance. It's not obvious in advance. So I guess right this time. I've guessed wrong before. I've definitely spent it all and gotten to dollar days. I've definitely not spent it and then was going 3 and 4 on guys that were probably $1 or $2 players. So it's a little bit of a feel thing and a little bit of luck.
Yep. It is. And it's funny because I was going to do like $10 on my flex, leaving me like 8 or 9 to spend on my reserve players, on 4 reserve players. And I made the opposite decision. I said, okay, you know what? Ibuka's hovering out here, and I think he's more of an $18 to $20 player. I'm going to go the 14. If that gets him, I get him. And so be it. That's what I did. And so I had just $2 extra to spend on my reserve roster, and I actually spent on a quarterback, which is debatable. But then again, for Caleb Williams, I thought it was worth trying because I went cheap at quarterback anyhow. So I was comfortable with my $1 players in this draft. If you guys can see, I ended up with like Will Shipley, Josh Palmer, DJ Giddens, Rico Dowdle. The names are less important than the concept. I was fine kind of tearing apart my reserve budget in this one particular instance because it's a 14-team league. Every starting spot is so important. I thought I was getting a better starter than most people are getting in that spot.
Oh, like Buka for 14 is a good price. I mean, I think that's one that you bust your budget for if that's your last starter. Like, who cares, right? Go to dollar days, deal with it. But are you going to do it for Stephon Diggs? Like Diggs is okay. He's better in PPR. I mean, maybe. No,
Ibuka was the only guy I was willing to do that for. I was all set to do like, I'm going to have like $3 here, like you have $3 player here, $3 player there. I'd have better backup running backs. I would have. But not really, though. I mean, there's not too many good $3 running backs out there. The ones you got, your $3 players were all receivers, right?
Yeah, and I didn't need them as much, but it was the value, and I'm not going to spend $3 now. I got Tajai Spears, who is now out for a month, and then given that I have Rashee Rice, Rice, he's not that bad.
He's also suspended for life, but
but he's Rashee. Well, I mean, it's arguable what's worse, but the point is that I'll probably have to drop Spears because I don't have that much bench room. So if I get any injuries, like Spears is going to be a cut, and whatever, it's a $3 player. It's not a big deal, but I didn't know that he was going to miss, the 4 weeks at the time. But that's how thin the running backs were. The backup running backs were, but that's all right too. I mean, like, it's a 14-team league. So if you're getting points from Lamar Jackson and Brock Bowers and Bijan, and you've got, good receivers, it's like, okay, one of my running back slots is going to be a little soft. Like, that's just, You're not going to come out of a 14-team league and be like, I get tons of points from everywhere,
And the thing is, there were no real $10, $8 running backs. The closest was Ramondre Stevenson at 12, and I already have Henderson. I didn't want to spend 39 on the.
He was 6. No, Stevenson went for 6.
I'm sorry. It's ETN that went for 12. My bad.
Yeah.
Okay. So Stevenson was actually a deal there. But ETN was the closest as a $12 running back. And I kind of wish I would have gone that maybe. Jordan Mason went for 12. That was actually a decent one too. Shu had some interesting buys. He also had the $12 Joe Mixon. Who knows how that's going to work out. But
I basically crossed him off my list. I'm just like, he's not coming back.
I have him in one league, and that's plenty for me.
Yeah. You never really know. Maybe he's on it, but like, and what version of him comes back if he does? I just like, if he went in like round 11 or something in the league we just drafted before this podcast.
Yeah.
And even then I was like, not really considering him.
Yeah. Uncle Ted asked, how much did Devontae Adams go for? He went for 26 in this league. Again, I'll post the link here in the chat for those that are streaming live with us there, but I did budget positions this year, and I didn't fully stick to it, in part because I was a dunce and didn't list a tight end, and then I bought Kittle and on the fly, oh crap, I better adjust this here. But I planned all along in going super cheap at quarterback. This league, I've seen that's consistently you can do okay with it doing that way. Our buddy Scott Genstad always gets like the $2 and $3 quarterbacks, except for this year. He didn't this year. It was kind of funny. He actually spent on quarterback, went $10 on Mahomes, and then, although that's not like super spending on a quarterback, but then bought a backup too. Very un-Genstad like, but anyways.
He panicked. He tilted hard when I got Lamar for 22. I actually love Mahomes, and 10 is pricey for a non serious running quarterback in this league, but I think he's going to earn that. I think Mahomes, I was talking about this with Alan during the draft, it's just the hard part about Mahomes for the NFFC, but it's not a problem for this league, is the NFFC you want to stack, and you can stack, but you don't really know if it's Worthy or Rice or Kelsey. You don't really know who the main guy is out of those three. for the playoff weeks. And I did get all three of them in one league with Mahomes because I picked first, and I got Chase and I got McConkey, the first two picks. And then, it's third round reversal. And I was going to take Omarion Hampton, and he went right before me. And I was like, okay, I don't like any of these values right here. I'm going to do it. And I just took Worthy and Rice on the 3-4 turn before the whole suspension. We knew he'd probably get suspended. This was like 3 weeks ago. And then I got Mahomes in the next round with a running back with Pollard. And then in the next 2 rounds, I got Kelsey and Addison. And so it's like, and I thought at first, like, oh, good, Rice is going to play the first 4 weeks, and then Addison will be back. But now they're both suspended at the same time. But anyway, I got the Chiefs mega stack, and I got Hollywood Brown later too, because I think there's like a 30% chance that Mahomes throws like 45 plus touchdowns this year. Like that, this is obviously within his range. He's done it before. The Chiefs defense may be worse. The teams they're playing against in the West have all gotten better offensively. And I just think like Mahomes is going to be Mahomes again. And you're going to be like, wow, I got my first 2 picks completely unrelated, and then I still got the entire stack.
It's possible. Certainly is one way to go about doing that there. It's 6 points for a passing touchdown too in the NFFC. So that's another big consideration there. Is he could go off. The thing that might work against you is if the Chiefs defense is dominant and they just don't need to go all out. And they, that's the one thing you worry about. Like early, some of those early Mahomes years, the defense wasn't that great. So you had to get in there. That's one of the reasons why the Bengals stack is so choice, right? It's just because there are going to be a lot of 35-34 games, 41-40 games, just because the Bengals defense is so ridiculously bad that you have to get into these shootouts. Yeah,
but they're 37% or 39% owned Burrow and
I know.
Chase.
I'm
so
aware
it's
of
like,
that.
so you get in the playoffs and you're like, great, Burrow and Chase went off. They went crazy in the playoffs. Okay, but I didn't have the perfect everything else because there's 600 teams or whatever. There's 200 teams in the playoffs that have those guys. And now,
But you know what? If you're drafting Chase, you go ahead and do it anyhow, is the way I look at it. If they're going to give you Burrow at 3-4, you take it and you just say, okay, I'll figure out how to differentiate there. I think it's still worth it there to me. You could even go Bengals mega stack. I mean, you really, I think that's the way that differentiate is if you go like Burrow, if you go Chase Brown, Higgins, Burrow, you can't though
the NFL.
Not anymore. You could early on. Chase Brown has gotten too expensive.
There's probably some leagues, some teams that drafted in early July or June that have Chase Brown, Higgins, and Burrow. But that's
Higgins
like,
and Burrow you can get at 3. Higgins you can't do at the end of 3.
You got to get him at the end of 2.
A third round reversal. I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
you get Chase, Higgins, Burrow, but those are your first 3 picks. And then imagine you've got Bengals. You've got to beat out 39% of the pool. I've got the Chiefs. I got to beat out 10% of the pool. And I've got my first 2 picks. I have Chase also, and I have McConkey, which you don't have because you use those first 3 picks. To me, the Chiefs stack is better. Now, there's a guy today stacked Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, and Marvin Harrison, and got him later than usual. Yeah. And no one's going to have that stack.
True. And that's the thing is, I think you can still win without a stack, but it's obviously been working pretty well in these overall contests, especially the online championship when you have over 2,000 leagues or 2,000 players. I get why it's so important, but if you have the 1.1, it's interesting. I guess you go Chase and then you try to find another stack to go with it there. And a lot of that has to depend on who you get either at 224 or 336, I guess, for your second receiver.
That's what I did. I went Chase and then the Chiefs.
Yep.
And let's say Burrow, throws for like 3 touchdowns a week and on average in those playoffs, and Chase gets, it's absolute monster stats. And unless Burrow is also throwing to Higgins, and some people have Higgins too, like you don't need Burrow. Like his contribution, it's Chase doing the heavy lifting, right? So like you have Baker Mayfield or Bo Nix, and they're basically equal to Burrow in those weeks. It doesn't matter that they're correlated. That's why you need weird correlations, And then the other thing about the NFFC, I know we're talking about the auctions, is that because only 2.5 teams make the playoffs per league, Stacking's good because you want volatility, right? Like, so
Right.
if the Broncos are suddenly a really good offense this year and you've stacked them, you're sort of, if they're not, well, you probably weren't going to make the playoffs anyway. But if they're good, you're getting, all what you want, more of an extreme outcome than than like the 6th or 5th best outcome in your league, which makes the playoffs in home leagues, but doesn't in the NFFC.
Indeed. Do you ever try to correlate in home leagues, standalone leagues? How important, if at all, is it in, say, the Steak League? Do you ever try to pair your quarterback with the receiver, or does it just not matter?
Doesn't matter. I mean, I wouldn't avoid it. Like I'm fine if it goes that way, but in a way, you want, for like head-to-head matchups and you're worried about record. I mean, you are worried about points for the stake bet. So the volatility, you could be 3-10 and, still be an eater, which is perfectly fine in this league. You paid $20, no big deal. So yeah, I guess you could stack as long as it was the most points, but there's no benefit to correlation, and you're better chance to get wins if you're actually not correlated. If there's more like, evenness to your point scoring every week.
Chris is in here, asked a quick question unrelated to what we've been talking about. We'll just mention it real quick. League is moving from tight end to tight end with wide receiver, basically pass catcher. How does that change tight end strategy? Obviously, you don't have to care about all but the elite tight ends. I mean, there's like 5-6 tight ends. Most after that, they're all 550 yards and 5 touchdown guys. So they're no different. You don't have to start a tight end. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, just take their stats as receivers and sort them up accordingly.
Exactly. So don't galaxy brain it too much. Yeah. You go by stats all of a sudden. It just takes away positional scarcity. And I don't like that trend, by the way. I like having the scarce positions. I don't like eliminating kickers, to be honest with you, either. I like every scoring play to count. I want I play in 20 leagues, so I have some non-quarterback league. I mean, some non-kicker leagues, a couple non-defensive leagues, and it is a relief then. But if I was just going to play in like 3 or 4 leagues, I'd want everything to count.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I just, we've calibrated our minds and to the drafts that we do. Mm-hmm. To me, the NFFC is the default. I like the 2 QB, the QB flex trend. I'm fine with it not being the default. I'm fine with the NFFC in my mind being the default.
Yeah.
But I like a couple QB flex leagues just because it just changes the value of those QBs. And if you spot, like, I think Daniel Jones could be useful. He's obviously drafted in every QB flex league, but like Daniel Jones is not really worth even looking at in a 1 QB league. So it just cuts like important, the most important position off the board. You've got guys as backups. You're not worried about it. There's always like 3 or 4 starters on the wire if you need one for a week. So I like the QB flex, but really people are starting to get rid of the tight end. That's kind of dumb.
Yeah. I mean, I understand, like, you got some tight ends that line up in the slot. They're really not tight ends anyhow. So I understand the push, but it's going to take a while for me to convert to that there. I play in 1 league that's like that there, and I just didn't end up not drafting a tight end because of it there. So that was fine with that.
By the way, I think Pete should have made Travis Hunter DB eligible. Now, so like in our stake league, we have individual defensive players, and he sent an email before the auction that Travis Hunter's defensive points would count, and so would any receivers basically, but he's the only one who's really going to get them. But he could only start at receiver, right? So he has value, right? He's going to score points at receiver, and he'll get a little bonus for his tackles if he gets an interception. But if you could start him at DB and get his receiving points every week, that's like, that's really valuable. And so I think it would have been cool to put him up for auction. Did he go for $40? Does he go for 35? Where does he? I think that's a good challenge for everybody to figure it out. Just like Ohtani, you can't have Ohtani in a draft, only in auction if you count as pitching, because in the draft it's like, okay, I picked first, I won, it's over. But you can do it, in an auction. You could say, okay, I'm going 85 on Ohtani, and I've got a pitcher and a hitter, and I can put him in a pitching slot or DH slot and get all the stats. I just think that's cool, right? Like, why are we not taking advantage of these athletes and putting ourselves to the test? Like, because the whole fantasy GM thing, right? If you have Ohtani, you're the Dodgers. Like, how much is he worth? They paid him a lot, but how much is it worth to have a guy who can occupy one of 25 slots and do both, right? Or how much is it worth to have a guy who can, occupy one of 54 slots and do both, right? It's the fantasy GM. This is fantasy, right? Like, I don't know. I think that's a wrinkle that these guys, by being like the most insane athletes, have offered us, and we're rejecting it. We're like, no, it doesn't fit. It's too difficult to figure out. I think we should not be doing that. I think we should be welcoming it and making this a new, like a new frontier of figuring out how to win.
And I think I've come around on this with Ohtani too. You and I used to argue about this on Sirius XM, that I was like, it's too complicated. No, I agree. If he is insanely valuable in real life, he should be insanely valuable in fantasy, and we can put a price on it. Let's put a price on it. Just like, we had to be innovative with Tiger Woods. Remember when Tiger was so utterly dominant? We had an auction golf league. We actually ended up having to break Tiger into months to find a way to get the appropriate price on Tiger, because otherwise there was a race to max bid. We had a 9-man roster, $100 budget, and it was a race to say 92. Then we had to do a random draw to say who had the right to say 92.
Right.
And so and we realized 92 wasn't a good value. It was still a bargain. So what we ended up doing is January Tiger, February Tiger, March Tiger. It was a combined $165. That was the true value of Tiger Woods in those years. So,
isn't that what's fun? Like, it's almost like price discovery. Like, how good is this player?
Yeah.
How good, now obviously our categories are not the money winnings, the golf is more realistic, I guess. But like our random point scoring categories don't truly reflect their exact value. What's crazy about Ohtani, he's the 1.1 without this rule. Like, he's already the 1.1.
Yes.
We used to joke when he was like a 4th round player, we'd be like, how much would it be worth if we allowed his pitching? But now you can allow 0 pitching. He's 1.1. If he was only a pitcher, if you have Ohtani the pitcher only, right? He's going in like the next year, probably like the 5th or 6th round or something. And like I don't know. I just think it's just a missed opportunity. You want content. You're a content company. You want to have interesting discussions about something. Why not have these anomalies, these once in a generation anomalies, and bring them into discussion? I mean, that's interesting.
So if Hunter were DB, if we could have just drafted, it's an IDP league. We have to start one defensive back. We could have brought him up as a DB and get his receiving stats still. How much would you have paid for him?
Well, let's look at it. So the average safety that you pay like $2 for or $1 for is like about 6 or 7 points a week, something like that, right? I mean, when you get 6 out of your safety, you're actually pretty happy. It might even be 5. The safeties aren't linebackers. But anyway, it's like, let's take 5 points a week you're expecting out of your safety ish. Yeah. The best guys get like 100, more than 100. Yeah, maybe like 6 points a week. And then what's Hunter projected for in a half PPR? Like 12 or 13 a week, 14 a week. What would you project him for? Right. So he's got 9 points more than them. And then he's going to get a couple IDP points too, though. Right. So he's going to have 13 points, 12 points more than them. Right. So what position is there a 12 point over sort of like your standard starter? Right. So if the standard starter wide receiver gets 12 or 13, you're talking about like a 25-point wide receiver, right? You're getting 12 points more. So you probably go like 60. I don't know. Am I wrong about this, Jeff? You go like $60 on him, 65,
something like that. Yeah. And that
you're getting the McCaffrey of DBs or something.
Yeah. I'm looking at, and the thing is, even the way we have it, it pumps up, it does pump up Hunter's value a little bit. In our league, he went for 22. In the Madison League, I was reading Joe Bartle's article, and I think he went for closer to 30.
I think they were correct, and we were wrong.
I agree with you. I think Hunter came up really early in our auction, 10th player in our auction, right. And I actually agree that I think he should have gone for more. I think that's, but that's part of the process. Is like and I've done this many times before. That where two different. It's just sometimes league selection. You can get a big difference there on the volatile players. But that's the whole point of our exercise. And that's why you do an auction, because everybody values these players differently. Sometimes it's timing, it's bidding styles, it's all of the above.
Yeah. I mean, the whole fantasy sports, right? Like, we've spent 25, 30 years doing this as a job. And you're like, what's it worth? Like, why are you even doing this? Like, is it just entertainment? Is it just empty entertainment? Well, no. I mean, there's something to be said about studying a subject, having an assessment of it, and then testing that assessment against reality, right? And being wrong a lot, being right sometimes, but constantly having to test what you're doing against reality. It's a real experiment. And we're like squandering opportunities to figure this kind of thing out in these cases. But I've thought about that. Like a lot of things, sometimes I am talking to people about, investing or what we think is true about the world or whatever. I'm like, what have I done? I'm not like a government person or something, but I'm like, I've basically had a job where I had to like decide, what I thought was going to happen in a complex system and then find out whether I was wrong or not. Often I was wrong, but that's like good, So I think like there's like a frivolousness to it. And if you're just like having a bunch of beers and randomly drafting, it's just fun. It's entertainment. Nothing wrong with that. But I also think like if you take it seriously, it's like a real, reality is difficult,
Yep.
So yeah, I just feel like we're squandering like this opportunity to interpret reality and just as a content company, it's like you can give people content about stuff, but nobody does the format, right? Right. Seems like everybody's just, not counting his defense stats.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, now I have one league release where we could try it a little bit there and it's fun. I'd like to do it. I'd like more leagues where I could try that out for sure, but I'm also in too many leagues as it is. I want to do the Steak League auction again though, to see like, okay, we did one auction. Now let's see how it differs when we do it a second time. See what people have learned and how it changed. Because it wasn't my first auction this year. It was my, I think it was my third actually, but I got another one tonight. And I'll tell you, every year the auctions are different than all the drafts that we do. And I feel like it's a lot more different in football where it comes in later and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh, that's it. That's what I forgot about that. I need a couple extra. I got to get those reps in every time.
Yeah. You're like, I'm back. Oh yeah. This is what's going on. This is how it goes down.
Yeah.
And, it was my only auction. I've always wanted to get into one of the high stakes NFFC auctions, but most of them are in person. Mm-hmm. And the online ones are all like, 9:00 Eastern, which is 2 a.m. here. So I'm not going to do it.
Right.
But I always look at like the lobby and I'm like, I wouldn't mind. Like once I get my head around the player pool and what I want, I'm like, oh, this would be fun. Cause there's some builds, you can't get my team in a draft. You can't get Bijan and Brian Thomas and Brock Bowers and Lamar Jackson. You can't get that, nope. So.
Yeah. So, I think that's the fun aspect of that there for sure. I want to do the NFBC auction next year for baseball. I want to do on that. When I go for the main, I want to get there early and do one of the auction leagues there. Cause I go when I see them ongoing and I get a lot of FOMO. I'm like, I got to do that. So I will do that next year there. So it's definitely going to be a thing that happens. Hey, what do you got going on? What do you want people to know about?
People for this podcast, just RealManSports.com. I'm just writing a lot, putting out a lot of thoughts and ideas. I've just been like more into football this year. I've been like on Twitter, like watching like preseason highlights and college highlights for all these players. I was way too lazy to do that before. I don't know why. I'm just into it now, in a different way where I'm just like getting deeper and deeper in it. So I'm just writing about, all my drafts and the stuff I'm seeing.
Good.
So again, it's RealManSports.com.
All right. And if you want the other stuff that Chris does, chrisliss.com as well, or just follow him on Twitter at Chris_Liss. As always, Chris, always fun talking with you. Thanks for coming on board today. And it was great seeing you this summer as well.
Yeah, it was fun. Good stuff. And I was just thinking about this when we started, like we've been doing the same thing for like, I don't know how many years, XM started in 2010 and we were doing the baseball show 5 years before that. And here we are in 2025, like still having the same basic conversation. So yeah, good times.
It is. It's always the best. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up today. We got Mario and John tomorrow. I'll be back with another industry guest, Jen Piacenti, next Wednesday. He's going to join me on the podcast. So thanks everybody for listening. Have a great day. Take care.